If you have ever been in a meeting where you're following through with everything, but when it comes time for you to speak, your mind just goes blank, then this video is for you. Imagine you are following everything that's being discussed, you're understanding everything, you have your own thoughts forming, but when it comes time for you to speak, your mind just goes blank. And then when you reflect back on why this even happened, you start thinking, wait, but I knew exactly what to say. Why did I just blank out? Well, if this sounds familiar, most likely it's not your confidence and neither your communication. Let's break down the real cause and how to fix it. If this is something you struggle with, I break down practical communication skills engineers have ever taught on this channel. So subscribe for more content like this and for future videos. Over the next few minutes, I'll talk about why engineers go through this problem of blanking out during meetings or freezing at times, as well as one simple shift that you can make to prevent this from happening in the future and how to be much more well prepared going forward. And I would like to preface by saying this is not about being extroverted or becoming someone you're not. It's about understanding how your brain works and how you can use that to your advantage. So by the end of this video, you'll have one concrete way of how you can train your brain so that you're more clear and more well prepared to speak in meetings. I personally really struggled with this early in my career. As a junior engineer, I used to be able to talk decently well in one-on-ones or even on Slack discussions. But when it came time with meetings with senior people, with other stakeholders, or basically people with more authority than I had, I used to just freeze and blank out. And I noticed this pattern even in stand-ups, for example. To give a bit more context, our company stand-ups were weekly instead of daily. So we had to give a lot of updates on that day specifically. And yeah, at times I used to miss a lot of updates or even blank out when giving my updates because I was not able to formulate my thoughts in the best way possible. But once I made the shift to understand how my brain works and also take concrete steps to train it better so that I start faring a lot better in these meetings, my ideas started coming off better without me freezing. And I immediately started seeing the difference. So let's first talk about why this is happening. So when people think about this, they feel it might be a confidence problem or it might be a communication problem, but you'll be surprised. It's actually a cognitive load problem. So when you're in a meeting, listening to others speak, there's multiple different things happening at one time. Your brain is listening for information, it's processing the information, it's evaluating the information for correctness, it's forming thoughts in your brain on if you want to speak. And all at the same time, it's also processing things like, is it worth asking this question? What if people think I'm stupid if I ask this question? How will it sound if I say it this way versus that way? And so you get an idea. You got a multitude of different things going on at the same time with multiple different processes running in your brain. So when too many things are working at one point, your brain just stalls, especially when it's actually your time to speak up now. So you might know what you want to speak up, but at that immediate point, your brain just is not able to formulate those thoughts the way you want them to. Because, yeah, like we discussed, too many things are going on at one point. Before moving forward, one quick clarification I wanted to make. So this video is about when you blank out, when you know what to say. The other thing is when someone asks you a question and you do not know what to say. Well, my friend, that's a whole different topic for another day, for another video. So I just wanted to make that one clarification. So with that out of the way, let's keep moving forward. Well, when you're put on the spot like that, or when it's actually your time to speak and your brain just blanks out, engineers usually tend to do a couple different things. One, they start rambling. They try to think by thinking faster, which ends up in their idea coming forward in a very unconfident manner, because when you think fast and try to speak that and you do not know how to piece it together, you end up using a lot of filler words like the lights, the ums and the ahs, the you knows. And even if you're saying the right thing, it will come off as if you're not sure if you're saying the right thing, or basically you're just not confident about it. Yeah. Or sometimes they feel they just need to immediately start talking as soon as they're asked the question or when it's their time to speak. But at times, that's usually not required. Another thing I've seen engineers do is they tell themselves, just be confident. But at that point, they're telling themselves to be someone they're not. So maybe you're doing yourself an injustice when you tell yourself to be confident. Because you just can't become confident by telling yourself you're confident. It has to come internally. So what do you do now? Well, now let's talk about the one simple shift that will make this easy for you going forward. It's as easy as writing down what you want to talk about. Wait, before you click out of this video, let me explain. Before the meeting, you usually have some context on what the meeting is about. Might be a stand-up meeting, could be a meeting of discussing some specific idea, some project, at which point you might know what you might want to talk about or what might come up as a question for you going forward. Something like, what's one concern I might have with this project? What's one question I might raise for this project? What's something I might agree or disagree with? And as these thoughts are formulating in your head before the meeting, just jot them down on like a notepad or even on your laptop, for example, on the Notes app. So when during the meeting, it's actually your time to speak, you can immediately just cross check what you noted down or like what question you noted down, so that at that point you're not scrambling to find it in your memory and you're not depending wholly on your memory when it comes to thinking what to talk about or what question or concern to raise at that point. And let's say you do not know now what you want to talk about or what you want to ask before. So as the meeting is progressing, your thoughts are formulating and your questions are arising. As that happens, immediately just go ahead and note it down. Again, on a notepad or in the notes app on your laptop. Because if you rely just on a memory, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to blank out, because you'll try to find it between all the cognitive load that's going on, and most times than not, you're going to blank out again. So going back to my personal example of when I mentioned I used to blank out in those weekly stand-ups, that's exactly what I did. So before my stand-up meeting, I used to spend maybe a couple minutes just jotting down everything I did in that last week. So when the time came for my update on the stand-up, I just quickly looked at those points and I gave my update at that, because now I had time, a couple of minutes before the meeting, to truly understand and think about what all things I did and how it impacted the team, instead of putting on the spot and thinking of all the things that happened. So taking the time to jot down your thoughts is very helpful. And you do not need to write big ass points or anything. You can literally just note down like anchor points. Even going back to points you might want to raise in the meeting, you can talk about maybe timeline risk, trade-off, clarity, ownership, things like that. So even if you write down one word, your brain now immediately has an idea of, oh, I need to raise a question about ownership. This is what I have to talk about. Instead, now if you were to scramble for that during the meeting, then most times than not, you won't find it in your memory. Also, one more thing I want to clarify is when engineers think it's the time to speak up, or when they're asked a question, they go into it immediately. I want you to change that thought process today. I want you to take a couple of seconds, maybe pause for a bit. A couple of seconds of silence is totally fine, 3, 4 seconds, all good. Because that also gives your brain enough time to formulate your thoughts and basically think before you speak, so that when you do end up speaking, it comes off less as a rambling and more formatted in a better way. This also ends up reducing your usage of filler words, the likes and the ums and the ahs, because now your brain had a bit of time to process or like think the thoughts before you actually speak them. Okay, now that we talked about what to do, let's talk about how you can put this into practice. So now pick a meeting per day, or maybe a 1 or 2 meetings each week that you know you want to practice this on. And before the meeting, jot down maybe 2 or 3 points that you plan to bring up in the meeting. Or if you do not know what to bring up, just be a bit more cognizant during the meeting. And if a question immediately pops up in your brain, write it down immediately, so that you do not lose it or it does not get lost in your memory somewhere. I can guarantee you this is going to be a big game changer for you. This seems like a very easy and a very obvious thing, but it's not as obvious as it sounds, because if it was obvious, I wouldn't be here making this video. And I've heard this complaint a lot from people. So yeah, be proactive and jot things down going forward. And yes, pause for a couple of seconds before you start speaking. You'll be surprised at how that delivery changes when you do make that pause, because it gives your brain the time to formulate it in a much better way. Blanking out, rambling, hesitation, filler words, these are all connected, and these are not at all personality flaws. And don't worry, you do not need to be extroverted to excel at any of these things. Now, they are communication skills engineers are never taught, but can definitely be learned. So blanking out is just one small piece of a much larger communication system that engineers, if they learn, can really excel in their careers. Well, if this resonated with you and you're looking for more intentional help to come forward as that confident, trusted, and respected engineer who can communicate confidently, book a meeting with me using the link in the description below. Best case, we map out a transformation for you on how you can achieve that. Worst case, we end up having a lovely conversation. And if you found this video helpful, watch this other video on how to ask questions in a confident manner, especially if you feel your questions might come off stupid, or you're afraid of being judged, or you don't ask questions at all because of any of this, then catch that video. I feel it might change your thoughts. And as always, I'm just here to help.